Now, hundreds of students have been arrested at universities across the United States as protests grow over Israel's war on Gaza. They're demanding educational institutions divest in companies they say are complicit in genocide. Let's cross over to Teresa Bow, joining us from Columbia University in New York. And Teresa, it does seem that there is a message now from the university president to the students.
Well, that's correct. We're right side Columbia University. We're not allowed to go inside, mostly because only ID holders are allowed to do so. There's lots of security out here. There's hundreds of students that remain inside in this sit-in, an encampment, saying that they want to shed light on the war on Gaza, to what is happening on Gaza. They want universities to stop investments in companies that profit from the war on Gaza, and those are their demands. What is happening here in Columbia University has inspired many universities across the country, currently on the edge on how to respond to the student protests that are happening across the country, calling law enforcement, suspending students, among other things. There's been negotiations ongoing between the students and the university. After 2 weeks that hundreds of protesters, at least 100 protesters, were detained. And we hear now that the president of Columbia University has issued a statement. They're saying that the university is trying to resolve this issue in a peaceful manner. They also want to guarantee, for example, freedom of speech, but at the same time allow Jewish students in the university to feel at ease in this current university. She also mentions in this statement that the university won't divest from Israel. However, what she's also saying is that they're open for new suggestions and to discuss other possibilities on divestment matters, investment matters of Columbia University. We're also being told, Al Jazeera has been told, that the students that remain inside have been told that they need to abandon the sit-in by 2 p.m. local time. That's about in 3 hours' time here. It's not clear what will happen then. Some of them believe that they could be suspended. We do not know what is going to happen. But what students are saying is that they have the right to civil disobedience. This is a long history. It's a long history in U.S. University of doing something like this back in the 1960s, during the Vietnam War. And that's why students here are saying that they remain where they are.
And of course, Teresa, you know, the scenes behind you right there seem pretty calm right now. But I was wondering, you sometimes can get a sense of the mood of the people, not just going into the university, but around you as you've sort of been milling around. What is that sense?
Well, I've been in New York for a day, I have to tell you, and I've been going around several universities across the city. You go downtown, for example, there's students there, again, shedding light on the war on Gaza, asking universities to stop investments on companies that are related to what is happening or profiting to what is happening in Gaza. There's a mood with many students outside saying and asking for people to join in into shedding light to what is happening currently on the Gaza Strip. People are walking, as you can see, very peacefully here. Journalists are not allowed to go into the campus right now. We believe that we'll be allowed to do so later on. We've seen some people here wearing a keffiyeh, as you can see, just outside the university. But we're also hearing that the students that are inside this university are calling for assistance. Again, they do not know what is going to happen at 2 p.m. local time. They do not know whether the police will be called in, whether they'll be suspended. But what is certain is that they're saying that they'll remain where they are. They believe in their purpose. They believe that the war on Gaza needs to end. And we'll be here reporting on what happens next.
Of course, we'll check in with you as time progresses. Teresa Bow there for us in New York. Let's cross over now to Shihab Rattansi. He's at George Washington University in DC. And Shihab, the Capitol Police, very careful in the way they've been handling the student protests where you are.
It's fascinating because it's the university administrators, the supposed guardians of the young minds under their tutelage, who are trying to get the police to clear this encampment out. And it's the police who are saying, no, they don't want the optics of of violently removing peaceful protesters. And it is very peaceful. The idea that this is a threat to anyone is bizarre. It's a very well-appointed encampment now. It has facilities for food, and there's a library. You can perhaps even hear a violinist who's serenading us with a selection of chamber music. But now we have this new installation behind us. Let's get Leila, one of the protesters here, to explain. This is an amazingly symbolic achievement here, but what's going on here? Where did all these barriers come from?
Hi, thank you so much. So it began last night. We had a peaceful cultural showcase in which members of the community, families, children, the elderly were gathered together to share stories from their culture and songs. When all of a sudden the police began to violently arrest someone who was inside the camp, they claimed this individual had jumped the fence, but it was clear this individual had been inside the camp for over 80 hours. And we always say here, we keep us safe. So the community rallied together to protect this individual, to prevent this wrongful, violent arrest, and to prevent any police brutality. The individual was able to go free afterwards. The barricades were then removed and placed in the center because these barricades have been a threat to the health and the safety of the students from day one. George Washington University allowed these barricades to be erected to prevent students from being able to access running water, from being able to use the bathroom, and to prevent medics from being allowed in. We have women inside who were on their periods for these 4 days with no access to running water. We had people inside who were sick, who were injured, who were disabled, but the police with their barricades prevented medics from getting through, putting the lives of students from across Georgetown, George Washington University, American University, Gallaudet University, and Howard University in danger. Now that the barricades have been removed, individuals have been able to access running water in order to take care of their health and their safety. We have had medics being able to come in and to give students checkups to make sure they are healthy. And this goes to show that we are prepared to stay for as long as possible.
So the administrators, are they still threatening you, though, with removal, suspension? Because as far as they are concerned, this is an unsafe environment and it's making Jewish students in particular uncomfortable. I can't help but notice your T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think these anti-Semitism accusations are just a baseless and racist characterization of what the Palestinian liberation movement has been fighting for. Myself, I've been offered kosher for Passover food. We've had rabbis come in. And also, if we want to talk about attacks against religious groups, we should absolutely be having this conversation. But we should be talking about the mosques and the churches inside of Gaza that have been bombed, oftentimes with individuals peacefully sheltering inside.
Thank you so much. And so, yes, I think perhaps, Elliot, maybe you can focus once again on this remarkable symbol of the power of the students here in Washington, D.C. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Shihab Britansi there for us in Washington, D.C. Let's cross over to Phil Lavelle, who's at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And Phil, what's the mood like there?
Well, there's a lot of protesting going on. I mean, remember, this is Boston, Massachusetts. There are a number of universities. There are a lot of protests. I mean, we've had 5 over the last week. 2 of them have been closed down, Northeastern and Emerson College. Both of those we saw the police brought in. 100 people at each side arrested, and those protests closed down. Now we've got this one at MIT. This one has been going on for more than a week. We understand that students are now in active negotiations with the university bosses, but you've also got protests at the world-famous Harvard University a few miles away. That one is behind locked gates. Nobody is allowed on site unless they have a Harvard University pass. And the police chief there has said, you know what, I am not going to go on site and arrest people because the university wants me to do that. I'm only going to get involved if there is violence or there is damage to property. But the university, at the Harvard University, is saying to these students, you may face disciplinary action, including not getting your degrees. And then we've got Tufts University, where we are told that at some point today, the process of ending that encampment will begin. Will that mean that the police are involved? Will it mean more negotiations? We don't know, but obviously we're watching that one very closely. But bringing it back here to MIT, I've got with me Zeno, who's one of the protesters here. Now, you've got a really interesting perspective here because you were actually arrested at Emerson College, and now you're here. Like, what happened there?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm Zeno. I'm a grad student, an organizer for the Graduate Students for Palestine. So what happened is Emerson is one of our sibling colleges. We organize, we all all of the colleges in this local area in Boston and Cambridge, we work in sync and tandem. And so we launched our encampment over a week ago, Sunday night, with Emerson and Tufts. And so we've been in close contact with those at Emerson. And so we support each other when we need each other. And Emerson gave us a call the other night. I was kind of overseeing a night shift and doing a night watch. About 11 at night, I got a call that, hey, Emerson needs help. They called in the state troopers. So myself and about 10 other MIT students at this campus took a couple Lyfts and Ubers, and we went over to Emerson, which is across the bridge on the Boston side. Now, Emerson set up an encampment in an alley, and there's two sides to that alley. And so one side of the alley, they were saying was more higher risk because the cops were collecting on that side of the alley. So I had the MIT on the more moderate risk side, basically doing a support rally where there were no cops. A few counter protesters, but no cops. So myself and a few other cheer and rally leads, we started taking over the megaphone and doing, free Palestine, our cheer choreograph. And everything was good. We had some folks locking arms on that side of the alley, but again, no cop presence. And then all of a sudden, all the state troopers pulled up with all of their vans to load us up in. And we all got quiet because we had a cop liaison. That cop liaison approached the lead cop. The lead cop came out there and he said, I don't care what you're protesting about. I'm not on any side. I'm neutral, but you have to leave because there's fire code violations. You're disturbing the peace, et cetera, et cetera. At that point in time, our cop liaison turned around to our cheerlead at the time and said, continue the cheers. And he lifted up the megaphone, and the cop was about 5 feet away from him, and he said, free Palestine, straight to the cop. And I pissed all the cops off, and they rushed us, and they started slamming us to the ground.
All right, we've got to watch the language because we're live on television.
Oh, apologies. They started slamming us against the wall, slamming us on the ground, many injuries. Myself, I was slammed against a brick wall. I was standing on a public sidewalk. I was slammed, and we were just linked arms with the rest of our friends and students there. They were picking and choosing who to arrest. They chose me, slammed me against the brick wall behind me, put my hands behind my back, and then lifted up my arms real high. And I'm telling the guy, hey, I have a connective tissue disorder, and he didn't care. He just kept lifting up my arms, slammed me on the ground, and then arrested me.
Okay, thanks for giving your account. Really appreciate it. And as you can see, the police are on site. They're keeping a distance, but as of course, we don't know how this will develop over the coming hours.
Phil Lavelle for us in Cambridge, Massachusetts at MIT. Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.